This is Elixr, a 19-year-old multidisciplinary artist from Toronto who recently had his very first art show. Now that may not sound groundbreaking, yet this was nothing like your average art show. But for you to understand, I'm going to have to go back to the beginning.
Breathe. Yeah, I told that hoe to breathe. Shotty my chin and my toes, I told that hoe to breathe. Shotty acting way too touching, man, I told that hoe to leave. Yeah, shotty play too much shit, left ass on scene.
Yo, what's up guys, it's Gabzzz here and welcome back to another video. Today, we have my Breathe recap. If you clicked on this video, you've clicked onto the roller coaster that is my Breathe recap. Now, you may not know what that means just yet, but trust me, this one's worth the watch. I first discovered Elixr back in February of 2023 at the DMTV Underground Showcase number 2. For context, I went to this show pretty much blind. I only knew 44 Romance and Gabzzz from the lineup. And so when I got there, I pretty much knew who absolutely nobody was. And looking back, it may have been one of the most influential shows I've ever been to. That was the first I'd seen of YHN Drex. It's how I discovered Josh. And it's also, I think, the night that Amir, aka Hot Dog Man, really burst onto the scene. But still, one person stood out to me, and I made sure to mention it in my recap. Then before I get into this next one, I want to show this clip, because this clip is pretty telling on who this person is. So, that is Elixr, a 17-year-old multidisciplinary artist. The kid's a DJ, a photographer, a painter, a graphic designer, a creative director. He even works with augmented reality, and he's only 17. 17. Bro, what the fuck are you doing with your life that this 17-year-old kid's got all this shit? Generally, I think Elixr might be the most interesting 17-year-old on the fucking planet. I watched this interview with, I don't remember, I'm just going to put it up screen right here. And genuinely, I couldn't believe everything this dude has accomplished at his age. And he's been doing it for so long at 17, which is insane. He's been doing it since he was like 10. That's fucking crazy. He's wise beyond his 17 years of life. And genuinely blows my mind with everything he's done. And I'm genuinely it's the first like true artist that I've found in the underground that I'm like, oh, okay, I want to see what this dude does next. In that clip, I mentioned Elixr's interview from the Catalyst series, which I couldn't find in the making of this video. I think it got deleted at some point, but it was the first time I actually reached out to Elixr. The second time I reached out to Elixr was actually over a thumbnail just before that recap was released, asking to use this picture for the thumbnail of the recap. And Elixr tried to charge me $75 for that shit.
You had, because you're wearing your orange hat, your orange Bass Pro Shops hat, and I remember you tried to use that photo, and I tried to charge this guy a licensing fee, which at the time I was like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Bro, $75, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It's actually a really cool picture, and it's still my background to this day, because you got Gabzzz on stage, you got Drex in the crowd. I think you could see a little bit of 44 Romance. You could see me in my iconic orange hat from back in the day. It was the perfect thumbnail picture. A few months later, in June of 2023, I actually got to meet Elixr for the first time at Dead Egos vs. the World. The first Dead Egos vs. the World. I actually have some unseen vlog footage from this event, and you can kind of see maybe why it was unseen, because what the fuck is this lighting? What the fuck is this angle? What am I doing here? Anyways, in meeting Elixr, he was exactly the passionate 17-year-old creative that I thought he was. He ended up actually on stage with Quasi and Misa and the entire Dynasty crew at that show, and one of the most iconic moments I think I've seen in person. I even remember, and I don't have any footage of this or any proof of this, but I remember Elixr going around with his printed ticket from the event, getting people to sign it. And looking back, that's the exact excitement that this scene is built off. Because nobody in this scene necessarily is massive or famous or anything, but to have that respect of like, yo, you could be something one day, or you could, even if you're not, just to say I knew you is cool enough, and to get someone's autograph as like an example to that is actually sick as fuck, and I think energy that we need more of in the scene now. The first time I saw Elixr in his true element, though, was at the DMTV3 show where he DJ'd a set. Once again, though, we got another poorly shot interview from me. Like, brother, I have no clue what I was doing back in the day. I still barely know what I'm doing. But this show was actually the first time I got to see how Elixr's brain actually operated. I got to talk to him off camera, really actually start to understand who Elixr was. It was also the first time I heard about Elixr's music. Now you may be thinking, holy fuck, Gabe, how much can you glaze Elixr in this video? And I'm gonna say probably a lot more at the later ends, but there's still some criticism here. For those who don't know, back in November of 2023, Elixr released his first SoundCloud exclusive mixtape. I don't actually think it was his first, but it would be the first I would review, called When Push Comes to Shove. And let's just say, I wasn't the biggest fan.
It's not something I would listen to. Clearly knows music. He is a DJ after all. He just needs to work on the vocal preset, and I think that's going to be the sentiment for most of the album. This one's a little bit of a mess, but the delivery and flow on this one needs a lot of fucking work. I also think the lyrical content is a little bit corny. I would have liked to see maybe some more genuine lyrical content. And the stutter effect on FPK's verse also just did not work for what he was bringing to the track. In my opinion, the flow on this one is completely off. I also find Elixr's obsession with the stutter effect interesting, because sometimes I feel like it genuinely works, whereas other times I feel like he's just spamming it and overusing it. It kind of shows who's playing around with rap music and who's the actual artist doing this seriously. We then get the interlude to Take My Life, in which Elixr leaves a lot to be desired. I don't see Elixr as this type of character. With Submarine, I need someone to count the amount of times he says submarine. It got repetitive. It's just another track where it feels like Elixr's putting whatever rap cliches he can think of and rhyme, putting them together and just laying them over a beat. It just felt unfinished to me. The consensus is, though, that if Elixr wanted to continue having fun with it, some areas of improvement would be his mixing preset, his lyrical content, and just a little bit more confidence in the delivery. Make me believe you're doing this shit.
So yeah, wasn't a massive fan. For context, I'm pretty sure a 5.3 is the lowest I've ever rated an album in my short-lived critic career. And trust me, Elixr did not let me forget it. Because the next time I saw him at the DMTV Underground Showcase 4, it was the first thing he brought up. He actually asked me how I review my album. And I didn't really have an answer for him, because technically the way I review my albums, or the way I reviewed the albums, was I would rate every song between 1 and 10. And then average out all the scores, and that would be the album score. And I would boost it or lower it depending on how I actually genuinely felt about the album, but that's basically the consensus. The issue was, I didn't rate the songs off When Push Comes to Shove in my actual review, because they weren't great in my opinion. The songs on this project just weren't for me. Either way, though, at this event, it was actually the first time I've heard about Breathe. But you've been working on your upcoming exhibition.
Yes. So this show is gonna be called Breathe, a multidisciplinary odyssey of Elixr, and it's gonna be my debut solo exhibition art show.
It was also at this event where I would hear about Elixr's second album I would review, I Spent All Morning Apologizing for the Sins of Last Night. Now, in between the DMTV4 show and my review of I Spent All Morning Apologizing for the Sins of Last Night, me and Elixr had a few calls, and I kind of heard a bit of what he went through in his personal life. I'm not going to go into any detail. That's his story to tell. I know he's covered it a little bit in my interviews with him, but that kind of fed into me wanting to stop doing my reviews, especially on people in the scene who I actually do appreciate. Even though I may not enjoy a certain project or something, these are still people I appreciate and have love for and want the best from, which is also why I was so critical. And it was the reason When Push Comes to Shove was my last review. In fact, the only reason I reviewed When Push Comes to Shove was to give Elixr that shot at redemption that he had told me he specifically wanted. He said that he made When Push Comes to Shove with me in the back of his head, trying to get a more positive review, which he definitely got.
Elixr did improve from his last project when it comes to vocal production. I think at times his vocals were actually really mixed really well. There's also a lot of melodic tracks on this project, which is actually a good thing because it does make it feel a little bit more personal. Obviously, with the last project I said, it felt like Elixr was playing a character. So this felt like a glimpse into who Elixr actually is and what he actually went into. This project has a lot more highlights than the last. Firstly, Playing Games With My Heart featuring Evan is an absolute bang. The mix was great, and that flow on the verse was absolutely crazy. Elixr has some genuine potential in music. Elixr also had some insane beat selection, and again shows he has an ear for good music. There's some tracks on this project that even felt like some Drake flows. It really shows that Elixr has the ability to create flows that actually truly work. There's some really good moments on this project, and it showed a lot of potential. That being said, there was was a vast amount of improvement from the last project. And I think Elixr's progression in music, if he so chooses to continue, is there.
That being said, I was still critical at points. All in all, I spent all morning apologizing for the sins of last night. Felt like it was a bit rushed. There's some really good moments on this project, and it showed a lot of potential, but fell victim to some unfinished tracks and even some filler. Considering Elixr's last project only came out 7 months ago, I feel like he could have pushed this one back a little more, put a little bit more work into it, and made it just a tad bit better. And all in all, the actual review itself was not my greatest work, and Elixr was, again, the first to let me know.
This guy, even though he rated my album like a fucking 6 point something, you know, bro, fucking rate, bro, like hates my shit, but you know, it's fine. We keep going, big love.
That one song with Evan is a hit though.
Yes, Playing Games with My Heart on all streaming. Fuck whatever, if people like the music, they like the music. If not,
Fuck him.
fuck him, I fuck with this guy because he's honest. However, I will say the latest review could have been a lot more detailed, a lot more longer, no diddy, but yeah.
Damn. See, he's reviewing my shit.
Yeah,
we review each
I'm
other's
reviewing
shit.
the review.
You thought you were outsmarting me, but I'm outsmarting your outsmarting. You get me? That's what it, yeah, I just outsmarted your outsmarted. You get me?
And to be fair, Elixr was 100% right. I fully half-assed that review just to get it out. I wanted to get it over with and just be done with reviews because I feel like they brought some negative connotation to what I was doing. And it made me drastically change the way I covered longboard projects. It's also why I dedicated myself to covering Breathe the right way, because I don't want another half-assed video. This is my guy. Like, Elixr is my guy. I shouldn't be half-assing my work for him. It just so happens that day in Brampton, though, was the day jammers took maybe the most iconic picture of the entire Breathe ecosystem that would end up being on the thesis painting for Elixr's remix project, and is, in my opinion, the piece that took Breathe to the next level. Now, you may be wondering, what the actual fuck is Breathe? Well, I caught up with the man himself to learn a bit about it.
Oh yeah.
What is Breathe?
So, Breathe is my very first debut solo exhibition art show. Basically, it's gonna be like, I called this the thesis paper of my life within the last 5 years, but in reality, it's more so the thesis paper within the last decade of my life. Breathe is like the 2024 version of Andy Warhol's. Actually, Andy Warhol, that is another inspiration behind the show, because when I was kind of putting this show together back in 2019, yes, this kind of been in the conceptual stages since 2019. It was his show EPI, that's the acronym, Exploding Plastic Inevitable. That's the name of the show. It happened back in the 70s in New York. So basically, it's gonna have my paintings, digital for canvas works. I'm gonna be doing the listening party for my very first executive produced mixtape called Breathe the Tape. And on top of that, I'm gonna be doing a DJ set as well. It's just gonna be a short but special DJ set.
Breathe is essentially uncovering the first layer of the onion that is Elixr. It's his debut in the art world and serves as a statement to showcase who Elixr is. And what's behind the name Breathe?
I've had that name Breathe since 2019. That was the first time I kind of like formed that whole concept of Breathe. I suffer from generalized anxiety disorder and PTSD, so I'm not reminded to breathe. and a lot of people think like, okay, that's just a stupid reason, but you really got to think about like whenever you breathe, new blood cells lead to new brain power, not brain powers, but kind of like brain function leads to great idea. So everything from your mind, everything from your ideas comes from breathing.
Now, Breathe has so many layers in the ecosystem that I'm going to go through them all first, and I'm going to give you my thoughts at the end. Starting with the art show itself that was accompanied by the listening party to Breathe the Tape. The actual art show itself was actually my first ever art show. I had been to museums as a kid, but like not really appreciating what actually I was looking at. And so the art show was actually kind of an eye-opening experience. I actually got to see what the art world has to offer and actually really appreciated the visual arts aspect of everything. The space was exactly how you would expect an art gallery to look. The white walls, the evenly spaced out paintings, everything looked super professional and was just a textbook art show overall. Elixr actually sold his first painting at the show to a fellow artist, Kismet, who Elixr actually brought up in our interview from a month prior.
Kismet as well. Shout out Kismet. He was the first artist to see the potential in me back in 2018, which is crazy. And if it wasn't for him, his motivation and his support towards me when I was a kid, I was probably 13, 14, I probably wouldn't even be in the position that I'm in. And I'm very thankful to be one of his very close friends.
Now, along with the art show, as mentioned, there was a listening party for Breathe the Tape, the mixtape that was accompanying the entire Breathe ecosystem. As well, your mixtape.
Yes. So the mixtape Breathe the Tape, it's 6 tracks, entirely executive produced by me. I put together some of the gems in Toronto. I really had to take my time with this. This has been almost a year-long process. I dropped 2 singles off of the tape. First being BDSM Has Its Pros, I Don't Know, featuring FBK and TMB, and Manic Episode featuring Lil Graysky, Calvin Moon, and Samir Mir. And what people can expect is, just imagine, this has never been done. I can proudly say this. It's merging the underground hip-hop scene with the luxury art scene. Many times. By the way, you're probably wondering, why the hell is are the song names so weird? Because each track is named after a painting that's gonna be shown at the show.
What inspired you to include a tape in this ecosystem?
So the tape was kind of like, so back in 2020, when all the fuckery in the world happened, like I said, I actually made this playlist, private playlist on Spotify, and it was like, it was called Exhibition Playlist, and that was gonna be like the playlist where I would be playing it during my show. And I didn't really have Breathe set into like how it was back in 2020. I was like, you know what? I want to have a musical like element into it somehow. Yeah. So with the tape itself, I really wanted to do something that really hasn't been done. Like I'm more about breaking boundaries, if anything.
Now, as we established, I have been very critical of Elixr's music in the past, but this tape was different. Oh, and how is the tape different from your your last musical projects? Because I know
Very brutal.
I've been very critical of your music, but it's because I want the best.
Yes, I hope.
But how is it different from your previous projects?
All right, so I'm actually not on any of the songs. Again, I'm playing a role as the executive producer, so you're gonna hear my tags and also the tape tags, but I'm not on it.
Now, I mentioned there was a listening party for the tape at the art show, but unfortunately I had to leave the art show early, which means I actually got to record my first reaction to the tape, and I'm gonna put it in here right now for you guys.
So I'm about to react to the project for the first time. I'm very late to this, to be honest. The project was released, the 8th? It is now the 14th. So I'm a little late. There's some names on here that are like genuinely like mainstays in the Toronto Underground. Like the names like Underdog Buju, Winter Skies, FBK and TMB, 44 Romance, Ayo No Deji, Nick Souza, Andy Descure. I'm gonna be honest, bro. I'm pissed. I am pissed. That collaboration, those are 2 names that are fucking like some of my favorites in the underground, and the fact Elixr has them on his tape makes me fucking pissed because I'm jealous. I'm basically jealous, like, because if I were to do a tape, I would probably put those 2 on there. Graysky's obviously on there. There's a few names I don't know. I don't know much about Moski. I don't know Rosa. Obviously Lofsky's there. I know him. Calvin Moon and Samir Amir, I don't know. So let's just get right into it, to be honest.
My guy, Elixr. Breathe. The tape.
First off, intro's 5 minutes long. That's unheard of nowadays. Starts very, very, very dark. Very dark. But I also think that's like the build.
It's a drive, but we ain't never running now. If we see that pussy boy, we gon' run him down. Yeah, tell me what you bringing to the table. Bitch, I'm tired with all the killing.
I wonder who made the beat actually for this one, because that's I think so far the big thing about this one is the production on this track is actually insane already.
25 hours we gon' stay up. This shit easy to me, something like a layup. Got a box up.
This is something big that I know Elixr is big on as well, is like details. The detail in this on this production is incredible. You can feel the atmosphere. You can feel it building within the song. Something that I think a lot of people overlook.
Bitch, I need it. Bitch, I need it. I'm too conceited. No, I can't kick it with none of you lames. I get too heated. I know you be jacking this song, but shit can't be repeated.
This does feel like a executive produced song. Like it's something that like you would see on like a Metro or a DJ Khaled album. The way the verses work and like each artist is getting their shine on the song. I would also say this is a perfect intro. Like realistically, if you're talking about intro, like when I picture an intro, I picture something, this is very weird to me, but I picture a song that you could play when like a boxer's walking out. It's essentially the way I see it, because you're trying to build up the hype so that people will listen to the rest of the project, is essentially the way I see it. I see it a lot like a YouTube intro where you're trying to hook the audience, reel them in, and keep them, because attention is such a currency nowadays. Intros like this are very, very, very important. And I think Elixr knows that for sure. Elixr definitely knows that. And he's doing that very well here. The next song, BDSM has its pros and cons. Or BDSM has its pros. I don't know. This is also one of the songs, I think all of these songs are named after paintings from the art show. But this one specifically, I know for sure, is named after a painting from the art show.
Trying to get freaky. 50 shades of gray right on the coupe. She won't eat me up like fettuccine. I feel like the hottest in my city. Fresh, she finna take over your filmer. She know I'm super fresh, I'm super clean. She see the vitamins up on the...
Right away, that chorus, not a big fan of that flow. The whiny end to it. It works on this, but it's not my favorite. I also wouldn't say this beat necessarily is as impressive, or the production is as impressive as the first track. Okay, so what I do like about this, and even you could kind of hear it in the first track, was the amount of time. Like there is very clearly, these artists know they're on the Breathe tape, and they also know this is almost like a showcase in a sense, and so they are trying to do their best and also fitting in the Breathe aspect. There's a lot of Breathe bars and whatever, which I actually like. Like I think that aspect works a lot for this tape and for this ecosystem as a whole. It ties it all together, right? If this was just like verses he got from artists and then just assembled them like willy-nilly with no actual mention of what's actually going on here, it would be less of like a moment in time, you know what I mean? Because even if you put the song, you take it from the tape and you put it on your playlist, you now know that song's from Breathe still. Even as you listen to it, you're like, okay, this is a part of something. But I think this song actually was a little bit lackluster. I don't think there was anything bad about it. The mix was good. I think each, like FBK and TMB both did their thing. I just don't think it was very catchy. And it was just kind of like when you're doing 6 songs and creating something like this in an art show fashion, I think you kind of have to have 6 bangers, right? And I think this song didn't really live up to that level necessarily. That being said, it's not a bad song by any means. It's just a song. That's all it is, right? The next track we have Reason I Remain with Rosa and 44 Romance. Now, I love 44 Romance. I think he's one of the most underappreciated artists in the Toronto underground. And so I am excited for this song.
I cannot believe my eyes are me to see it. I can barely breathe, this world will keep on bleeding. I cannot believe your eyes are me to see it. I can barely breathe, this world will keep on bleeding.
That's more of what I was expecting. Reason I Remain, I wouldn't say like this is not like an upbeat song at all. Not something you would actually like really put on for your friends or whatever, but this is also a song you could put on your playlist when you're just low-key chilling, like put on your like vibes playlist, and works very well. Again, with the I like the subtle implementation of Breathe really works for this tape. It keeps it cohesive, and I think that's something that is very important when trying to create such an aura. Next, we have Circle of Willis, which I have no clue what the fuck that means. With Lofsky and Ayo no Deji. Now, this song, I'm actually surprised. One, I did not know Elixr and Lofsky were like linked in any way. Elixr and Deji, I think I could see a path where like through maybe Graysky or something, like that link happens. But yeah, I'm not gonna, I will be straight up honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Lofsky's music. I think he's got a couple tracks that are really good, and I do really appreciate him as a human being, and like as an artist he makes sense. Like there's depth to him, and I do think that is very good in an age where everything's aura. So I'm very nervous about this song. Deji, I know, can do a very good job. He's very good with flows and very good like hype track. I don't know how well Lofsky will do on that. The fuck is this organ sample? Listen, we're only 10 seconds in, but the fuck is that organ sample?
Ripping off your brow with my teeth, you was so still shitting on the ops cause we never had enough. Holding my baby like I never felt love. Even when I wasn't shit, yeah, I knew I was the one. Yeah, I breathe this. You know me, I can never ever change. I bleed this. Rap shit, it really in my veins. Heaven ain't shit and I ain't tripping on fame. Fuck all those pussies, I'ma see you in the flame.
With Lofsky's verse, there's a little bit. I will first off say the flow is very good. Lofsky has a general talent to be able to flow on a beat very well. It's very kind of old school, but like not necessarily like, it's not like boom bap, but like, you know what I mean? It's like old school 2017 rap. I think where it falls off is, and it goes back to a lot of my criticisms over Elixr's past projects, is the vocal effects. They're just too much, or they just not, it may not be the wrong vocal effects necessarily. It just, they need to be tweaked or like completely redone. It sounds like Lofsky's rapping underwater is what it sounds like to me. Let's go into Deji's verse, and we'll keep an open mind here.
In the flames, he fell off like what a shame. Puppets out, bitch, different strains. Never tripping about to pass a different day. Never tripping about a thought, got a different bay. How much for the kicks, gotta estimate.
Once again, I go back to what I was saying about BDSM. It doesn't feel like this is 6 bangers. I think, again, when it comes to like building this big ecosystem, you gotta hit on almost everything. And I just don't know if these 2 songs, BDSM and Circle of Willis, really needed to make the cut. Next, we have Past Souls, which, again, I already said it. I am very jealous of this song. Nick Souza and Aiden Skier, those are 2 people who are, in my mind, like 2 different areas of the underground coming together. Something that only an executive producer could do, which is a very telling thing about Elixr and his touch on the pulse. He knows what he's doing when it comes to putting these songs together.
If she wanna kick it, then it's kung fu. Pass it to my brother like I want to. This a coupe, baby, I don't do no sunroof. And if you're looking for the hottest, baby, come through. They tryna see what we've been up to. She like art, she like war, bitch, I'm Sun Tzu. I heard you need somebody you could run to. So if you're looking for the hottest, baby, come through. I heard you need somebody you can run to. I'll be here with open arms ready for you. Yeah, I know these other guys think they for you, but you gonna get with me, I can't afford you. Matter of fact, what you want tonight, you would fit right into my life. You said you like my little videos, right? Girl, we can mess around and make one tonight.
Cold. This is the. This other speech. Am I rambling? Shit. This is what I was expecting from this tape. Again, we got a 3 out of 5 already. 3 out of 5. That's fucking amazing. It's very rap, you know, which is something I don't necessarily find a lot from Nick Susan and Idiot Scary. I feel like their songs are more melodic, more like they're more pop. But these were fucking like they were, as much as they mixed the more melodic and singing vocals in there. It was a lot more spitting bars, which I wasn't expecting, but it worked. Now we go into the last track, which is Manic Episode. Not quite sure what to expect. I like Graysky. I don't know who Calvin Moon or Samir Amir are, so I'm kind of going in a little blind, but I think that's actually good.
Told her breathe. Yeah, I told that hoe to breathe. Shotty my chin and my toes, I told that hoe to breathe. Shotty acting way too touchy, man, I told that hoe to leave. Yeah, she had to play too much shit, left ass on scene.
First off, Graysky killed it. As always. It was a very cool dichotomy between the very Cardi-esque, like, rage style that Graysky has to the almost, like, very, like, Toronto, like, top 5, like, type flow and like cadence that Calvin Moon had. I really enjoyed that, and it was also just a banger. 4 for 6. This project is definitely very good. I think it was very, very powerful to have like something to accompany the art show, and I think this being the first, obviously there was room for error, and I think that may have come with Circle of Willis and BDSM, but as a project on a whole, this is very, very fucking good and very impressive from Elixr.
The final part of the Breathe ecosystem was the documentary.
And is there a reason you chose to have such a more like complicated, diverse ecosystem type show rather than a classic or simple show?
Yeah, because again, I don't give a fuck about doing a plain show. I wanna do something that people can talk about that could be in Canadian art history for the next 20, 30, 50 years. Me doing the art show and the mixtape and my documentary. So the documentary, I'm not gonna say the name of it, but I will say it's directed by me, and also Max Bayarsky is also heavily affiliated with it. Shout out Max. That's my guy, my best friend, business partner, all that. That's gonna be the documentary within my life within the past 5 years leading up to the show. And that was kind of inspired off of like my YouTube past, because some of the documentary, well actually most, sorry, is actually shot on my G7X Mark II. And to have the juxtaposition of like me breaking into, you know, like not doing like the whole like point and shoot thing. It's half of the doc is gonna be shot on Max's FX3.
The doc itself was released last week and has done pretty well. The doc's soundtrack was the Breathe tape, completing the entire ecosystem and cycle of Breathe, and gave some real insight on what the process of putting together an ecosystem like this is, as well as a bit of who Elixr is and what his life is like. Elixr hosted a screen for the doc the week before it released and had a pretty good turnout of creatives, friends, family, all in the same room just to take a first look at the doc, and even had a Q&A at the end about the doc. So, to recap, the entire Breathe ecosystem had 2 full-fledged events, a mixtape, an actual art show, as well as a documentary, all to unmask the artist that is Elixr. And here's what I thought about it. Breathe is genuinely Elixr's graduation from the underground. He was able to create a literal era, an era like a time of 6 months that not only can his OG fans enjoy, but his later fans can look back on and be like, oh shit, this was cool as fuck. It was an incredible foundation to build off of, and something that I think up and coming artists should be able to study and be like, okay, so that's how you start. That's how you start your career. The visual arts aspect of the ecosystem was absolutely eye-opening, as I said before. And it's generally stuff that when I can, I want to be able to purchase. The depth of pieces like his remix project thesis piece, the Thomas Edison Called Me Last Week series, as well as his military enforcement piece, are actually almost hard to comprehend. Like, the only way you get an end product like that is if your brain works differently than the average humans in the best way possible. Like, I'm talking real genius shit. And to see some of his older pieces like this one that I don't have the name of, but it's still very well done. Like, it's simple, with just the right amount of detail and just the right amount of branding to make it true to Elixr's brand. It's truly talent on a level that's hard to comprehend. On top of all that, all the work he's been teasing as of late, like the Boxer series, I believe he's calling it. He put one in the background of my interview with him and Graysky. It genuinely seems like he's in his bag creatively right now and just keeps getting better and better. The other thing Breathe proved is Elixr's ability to get the most talented creatives in the city all in a room. Like, I'm talking visual artists, fashion designers, streamers, A&Rs, literally any creative you can think about was in these rooms and supporting Elixr. He's generally one of the most connected people in the city when it comes to the arts. I remember sitting down at the doc screening and just kind of looking around and being like, holy shit, every single one of these people paid $5 to be there minimum. It could have been 20. It truly shows how much people believe in Elixr, which leads me to the doc itself. Now, the doc, as is mentioned in the doc itself, is not meant to cover Elixr's entire career. It's meant to cover this one stage of his life, the one, like, first step of his career. It's setting the tone for who Elixr is, what he does, and how he operates. It allows for this show to not be forgotten, and in fact, immortalizes Breathe as his debut in the art world. I do think there could have been a little bit more of a storyline kind of piecing it together. I felt like there was maybe some things missing, which Elixr has said is purposely done, but I still would have liked maybe like a little bit more of a story arc instead of just kind of cutting everything together. But overall, it did exactly what it was supposed to. Now, as far as the tape is concerned, I gave a lot of my first thoughts in my first reaction, but I want to kind of talk about how it's aged for me. Of the 6 songs on the project, I added 4 to my playlist, which is already fucking amazing. I come back to Manic Episode and Just Fool Me Many Times way more than the rest. The intro and the outro, ironically. But Past Souls and Reason I Remain will still come on shuffle, and I'll play them straight through. I still think Past Souls is just genius work by Elixr. Like, putting Nick Souza and Aiden Skira on the same song, again, like, that's something I wish I could have done. And I might do at a later point. The other 2 songs, though, the BDSM track and the one with Lofsky and Ayo no Deji, I haven't listened to since my first reaction, and I have no real desire to either. But that's still pretty fucking good. 4 for 6 is insane. And I think as far as Elixr is concerned, he did very well putting together this tape, especially for his first tape as an executive producer. It is an incredible thing to build off of. It also showcased the highlights from his previous work as well. I always knew Elixr knew how to had an ear for good talent, had an ear for good music, knew the components that would put it all together. The problem with his previous work was production and the performative aspect. The performative aspect wasn't an issue here because he wasn't on the project. But even if he were on the project, this project is produced way better and engineered way better than his previous work was. His previous work was way more rushed, especially when you consider there were 2 projects with over 10 songs in the matter of 9 months, where this was 6 songs, 20 minutes long, and who knows how long it took him to put it together. Even if Elixr wanted to be on the next project vocally, I would assume, and I would almost bet on the fact that he would do it way better than he's done it before. If there's anything I learned from this project, it's that Elixr is putting out his best work and making sure he does it the right way. He's not leaving any stone unturned. He's making sure that everything sounds the best he can make it. Because he just holds the stuff he's releasing now to a higher standard, which translated not only on this tape, but in the stuff that he showed me off camera. I have definitely been tough on Elixr in the past with his music. Partially just out of honesty, but mostly because I want the best from him. I want him to make sure that he's putting out the best stuff. Because realistically, he doesn't have to be putting out music. He could just do art shows with the art that he has and be one of the biggest artists to ever come out of Canada. But he wants to be the best artist to come out of the world, if that makes sense. So adding music is just that extra element to do that. And to be able to do that, he has to put out his best work. And I think, for the most part, this tape was some of his best work. I genuinely love how Elixr is operating right now. And I'm proud to be able to call him my friend. There's very few people in the arts world that work harder and work as effective as this motherfucker. This guy runs a tight fucking ship. The reason I believe in Elixr so much is just how passionate he is about his work. As I mentioned before, he makes sure he never leaves any stone unturned. And I think this whole experience showcased that. I'm not the only one that sees it either. The people are paying attention, especially the people who they themselves are making moves. Elixr recently signed to be a part of Maxim Bayarski's DMTV crew, something I have heard him talk about for months now, and a move that just makes so much sense. DMTV is the reason I met Elixr. He's been a part in some way of every show I've been to of DMTV's. And not only that, but the relationship Max and Elixr have, from an outsider looking in, is that of siblings. I mean, just listen of how highly Elixr speaks of Max and DMTV.
You just officially signed as a member to DMTV.
Yes.
What's going on there?
So, as of February 28th, I am officially, on paper, a member of DMTV. My current role right now is multimedia coordinator. So which means I kind of handle all the creative. Eventually, that title will be changed soon. Just so it could be more, official on paper. So basically, start working with Maxim Bayarski. Back in March of 2023, we've always knew about each other because my brother TMB, shout out him. Ended up happening is we were just kind of talking, went from online friendship to like me working on the first ever video that I ever worked with. I did BTS videography, photography, and was a set designer. And that was for Misa's Thinking About You video. She was the first ever female on DMTV. And then after that, me and Max literally went from, FaceTime to fucking Art Basel. We flew to Miami for Art Basel. It was my first ever Art Basel. I've been in Miami. That was my second time going. But that guy is, a family member to me, like, an actual, brother. Graysky Oduro, Max, I know I'm maybe missing some names. I sincerely apologize. But those... those people, even Jammers right there, having, those people in my life, including Jammers, they're just some of the people who, genuinely changed and saved my life for the better, and there's, no other place in this world, even, me meeting Graysky changed the trajectory of, how I see creative direction now, and, yeah, really, if it wasn't for, Max even, because there was a time back in... It was actually after the DMTV4 show, I suffered a major mental health crisis that I don't even want to fathom what the fuck would have happened if Max didn't get involved. But it got to a point where it was listen, we really need you here. UFE saved my life, and that's not a fucking joke. DMTV and UFE and whatever. So to be one of three members, Chris Morey and also Shane Shaw, who is also a co-host of Minute Music. Me, him, and her be members of DMTV, really just and me even DJing the underground showcases too. Even the DMTV2 show, that was and I'll literally 10 toes down when I say that was a textbook event in the underground Toronto scene. There was a lot of power and a lot of influence, and genuinely I was happy to be a part of it. Me dancing on stage during Josh's set, or having you know, meeting Jetlag for the first time. Shout out Jet, like he's like my main,
man.
yeah. You know, me meeting him at DMTV 2, and then I literally met Jammers at DMTV 3 in person. You know, because like we were always talking on IG DMs. At the end of the day, I'm beyond thankful, and like this doesn't mean that I'll be straying away from the art anytime soon. Like matter of fact, like it just only gave me more inspiration. And yeah, and then to have DMTV involved with Breathe, my first art show, and the documentary as well, it's like it's a family unit.
To look at the future for Elixr, we're going to have to go back a year and talk about where he wanted to be roughly about now.
This is a little bit more of an introspective question, but I'm starting to end all my interviews like this. Where do you want to be in a year?
Wow, definitely bigger than where I am right now. Within the last few months, it was really hard for first quarter 2024, and I expect 2025 to be the complete opposite, and for me to hopefully be working with record labels on cover art, creative direction, record labels, fashion brands, definitely having the first steps into doing a long-term art show within the next few years, but definitely gaining more connections, hopefully having celebrity co-signs and work. And yeah, I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to kind of jinx things, but all I have to say is expect a lot more from Elixr from me within the next 12 to 24 months. And I bet on myself every single day.
It's funny because as much as that answer was from a year ago, it applies just as much to the present day. Elixr has been teasing his upcoming residency in Toronto, I Cry Opals, happening sometime this summer, and may actually be announced by the time this video is out. He's also been working with longtime collaborator Lil Graysky on cover arts and as a creative director for Graysky's Unfocused Visions, even teasing something big for Graysky's upcoming project, Pretty Boy Music. And in my opinion, joining DMTV is just as big as working with a record label, especially considering the potential I think that brand has. And on top of that, bigger shows, New York, Miami, etc., they're not out of reach for Elixr. My one takeaway from Breathe is that for this show and its entire ecosystem to work, it has to be followed up by something. We need momentum, especially in the documentary department. I think that documentary only works if it's the pilot to more documentaries to come. Everything in this ecosystem needs to be followed up by something much bigger, and I truly believe that is to come from Elixr. And I think it's to come maybe even sooner than you think, maybe even sooner than I think. If you don't want to take my word for it, then let's take Elixr's.
If motherfuckers thought I went crazy with the art 2024, 2025 we're going.
Sort of guy.
Bro, motherfuckers think I was acting funny in 2024. 2025 I'm acting hilarious.